It's that time again, and when the soul's itch comes knocking, my girlfriend is ravenous. It's been a long time since her first visit to Lordran, and she's way overdue for playing through the second game in this beloved trilogy. Ironically, I had a trip on the horizon, so she had the whole house to herself, but this time, persuasion wasn't necessary.
Dark Souls store open!
It's finally time to make my girlfriend play Dark Souls 2. I had a little bit of anxiety about sending my girlfriend straight from Elden Ring to Dark Souls 2. The reason being I wasn't sure how jarring it would be to go from the most recent game in the series to a much older one. She hasn't had to deal with the slower, heavier movements since way back when she played through Dark Souls 1. Until sitting her down to play DS2, it hadn't even occurred to me what a weird order she'd been exposed to the Souls games in. No one would blame you for calling her Souls journey a little unorthodox, but I was keeping my fingers crossed it wouldn't get too confusing to turn back time in this one. Thankfully, as it turns out, at its core, a Souls game is a Souls game.
Bearer of the seek, lest this.
Wait a second.
Bearer of the seek. Bearer of the seek, lest this.
That's what that's from? Bear seek lest. That's amazing.
Bearer seek, lest.
Right from the start, she had to retrain her brain, because she couldn't swing as fast as she was used to. More often than not, what gets her killed in these games is being too greedy with hits, and locking herself into the slower swing animations was only making it more obvious.
Oh god!
Things had a sort of rocky start, but once the rust came off and she had her confidence back, things got down to business.
Woo! Why do I feel like the guys outside were like way harder than he was?
Of course, it helped to find a weapon she was a little more comfortable with.
Beating up bones, mans. Beating up bones, mans.
She actually told me it was a nice change of pace coming off of some of the fastest games in the series and returning to her roots in something with a similar speed to Dark Souls 1.
This is kind of nice. Like I get a full stamina bar between each attack.
It's almost like she'd been training with weighted vest or something. It didn't take long for her to get overly cocky though, and she was quickly reminded that she was still playing a Dark Souls game.
Huh? What the fuck? Oh my god!
But the bad luck didn't stop there. That was also when she learned that slower movement wasn't the only thing brought over from Dark Souls 1.
Oh my god, I'm green! Oh, I hate it.
Many people are familiar with Dark Souls 2's unique tone from the other games. It countered one of her most consistent complaints with this series, which is how dark and depressing everything always is. Now, I'm not sure what merit this unit of measurement has, but this was the first game in the Souls series to make it onto our Time for Bed playlist. Something clicked between her and this game's hub area, and I can't say I'm surprised. She's always been a bit of a sucker for sunsets.
I could get down with this. Dark Souls 2 people know how to relax.
Unfortunately, things aren't always sunshine and longbows. It wasn't long before she found out about the health penalty in Dark Souls 2.
Why is my health shorter? Did I pick up like a Baldachin's blessing or something? I don't remember hugging any strange women.
That, along with the slow sipping Estus flask animation, led to some familiar gripes.
Come on! I'm trying to top off.
However, it was quickly overshadowed by her discovery of Lifegems.
Okay, and I'm just dead.
I'm not sure what the general consensus on these things are, but in my circle of friends, arguments will sometimes spark about whether they were a good or bad addition to the series. It's an argument not worth having because no one can agree on anything. But the nice thing about my girlfriend's perspective is it's a completely clean slate.
The fact that you can walk and use these makes them so much better than Estus.
It felt like she was ready to just up and take Estus off her hotbar because of how much more she preferred the gems. Those flasks have been at your side for 4 games and you're just gonna toss them out like that? Jokes aside, I think her style of feeling out fights and looking for punishing windows is really complemented by these. The time spent circling for that opportunity is perfect for the slow heal.
Oh no. Oh, I got greedy.
I thought it was interesting how much of her playstyle changed in Dark Souls 2. Not only did Estus get dropped, but I think I can count on one hand the number of times she used lock on in this game. In most of these games, you'll usually find a healthy mix of situations where locking on could be helpful or harmful, but my girlfriend was not a fan this time around. I was pretty surprised because in past entries, she's insisted on staying locked on no matter what, even when the camera was working against her.
Okay, we're making some distance. Oh, fuck.
Another thing was she was excited she could teleport from bonfire to bonfire right out of the gate in this one. Dark Souls 2 is different from its predecessor in that the world design will often take you to an area that can be difficult to pinpoint relative to where you came from. This leads to some cool moments where you're blown away by what's waiting for you around the corner.
I'm in a creepy cave, I'm in a creepy cave. What? Whoa.
As cool as these moments are, it came at the cost of her having no clue where she was half the time.
Bastille key. When the hell did I get a Bastille key?
She's always had a hard time finding her way through games, and oftentimes a map just makes things worse. I think I always took for granted the way other Souls titles allow you to see places you'll go, or places you've been in the distance. But hearing her confusion about it in Dark Souls 2 made me appreciate it all the more.
What the fuck? I'm in a volcano! I just came through a windmill! What?
It explains why she felt like bonfire warping was such a godsend in this one, but it seems like what she was most excited about of all was we were finally back to calling them bonfires again.
We're back to bonfires!
My girlfriend has developed pretty good Souls discipline by this point in her career. She likes to kill everything at least once because she has too much pride to just run past it all. The catch is, a lot of this goes out the window when there's a sizable amount of souls on the ground. I've seen her get some serious tunnel vision when there are souls at stake, and it's always a painful lesson when she loses them to her own sloppiness. Dark Souls 2 in particular has enemies that will pursue you much further than the other titles.
The last time I saw you, you had a much smaller health bar. But it was also huge. This guy's got a lot of health.
So it wasn't uncommon to watch her make a mad dash for her souls, retrieve them, only to turn around and be swarmed by an army of enemies pouring through the door behind her.
Oh my god! Oh shit.
This cycle would repeat itself over and over like the definition of insanity before she'd finally decide whatever it was just wasn't worth the trouble anymore.
Well, I didn't want that chest anyways.
When it wasn't hordes of enemies doing her in, it was the narrow hallways that just wouldn't let her squeeze past.
No, let me through! Oh, well, now I'm fucked.
And of course, this is a Souls game, so gravity was at its finest.
Oh! Not my finest moment.
She went tumbling off of everything imaginable, and many human effigies were burned in the process. And it wasn't just the endless death pits that got her. Her judgment of how high she could jump from things was a little overly ambitious. I mean, the game really rubbed her face in it with the well in Majula.
What the fuck? That's why I bought the ring!
As it turns out, fall damage hurts a lot more when you're suffering from a 50% health decrease.
Are you fucking kidding me? You fell like 2 feet! I could have jumped off that.
Something kind of unique in Dark Souls 2 is that light plays a more important role than it does in the other games. You can light a torch at bonfires that are used to illuminate areas you explore. These torches have a time limit and will burn out eventually. I think it's because my girlfriend doesn't always read when she's picking things up, but she didn't realize they were consumable and couldn't figure out why she couldn't light another one after hers burnt out. So she wandered around in the dark until she finally complained to me and I set things straight.
Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Jeez, I can't see anything in here.
Farming in games has never been something that holds my girlfriend's attention. She just doesn't have the patience for it. She's not really the type to go after the best gear or weapon in a game anyways. There might be one caveat to that rule though, and it's in the name of fashion.
Oh my gosh, I look good again! Oh, I can finally take my hood off. I can see my hair.
What happened in Dark Souls 2 was she got one of the Desert Pyromancer armor drops and convinced herself she had to have the entire outfit.
Oh, hell yeah. Zombie tube top.
So, with no rusted coins or other boost to item discovery, she spent about 2 hours killing these women over and over again to get the full set.
Bitch. Wah! Ugh. If I land the backstab, there should be a thing where, like, they just give me the skirt.
Up until this point, durability has hardly ever been a thing she needed to worry about in Souls. It was basically non-existent in the other titles, and even though it existed in Dark Souls 1, she never came even close to breaking her weapon. Which means it was a rude awakening for her in Dark Souls 2. She found herself stranded with no clue where she was, the only option being to tough it out, trying to make it to the next bonfire. The only thing more painful than watching her fight an NPC invader with a busted up weapon was seeing all the repair powder she had in her inventory afterwards.
Oh. Now what the hell am I gonna do about that guy?
Even with all the nuances that set it apart from some of the more familiar games, I think it's safe to say she had a fun time with this one.
There's a cat!
Oh, undead, are we?
She died! Oh my god, I wasn't expecting that. Glitter. The girlfriend's one weakness. Going a coffin boat. Where we're going, I don't know. Oh, that was kind of lame. The nature of the game has changed. What the fuck?
I think it's true what they say that your first Souls game will always be the one you think of as the most difficult. I say this because it's not like the game was a complete cakewalk for her, but at the same time, she doesn't get stuck on things the same way she used to. It's crazy to look back at where things started and see how much she's blossomed in this series in particular. It's enough to make a strength build cry.
And you can see right up my skirt. Nice.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not forget there's still more for her to play.